What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of my rock review. Before I start, I want to say rest in peace to two musical icons. The first one being Larry Smith. He was one of the most influential hip hop producers from he was mainly producer he produced Run DMC's first two albums, Run DMC and King of Rock, and he also produced Houdini's Escape album. But all three of them very dope 80s albums. He's in my opinion, he's one of the first superstar hip hop producers, if you ask me. He died I think December 18th, and because in '07 he had a stroke and he wasn't able to speak, so I guess he was affected with the stroke that left him like that. So I want to say rest in peace, Larry Smith. Your legacy will live on, And I also want to say rest in peace to Joe Cocker. Joe Cocker, you guys should know he's one of the most influential singers of his time. If you watch the show The Wonder Years, he sang that theme song "Had a Little Help from My Friends," which was actually a cover of of a Beatles song too. And he also sang a lot of legendaries "You Are So Beautiful," that song. I know all you guys have heard that song. Everybody has heard that song. And also songs what's that one song he did with that one girl, "Up Where We Belong." That song right there. Very dope song. And I want to say rest in peace to him too. He's, in my opinion, he's a very, very good singer. I underestimated him for a long time. He's a very good singer. If you don't believe me, check out he had this one performance where he did he sang "You Are So Beautiful." It was this one I was watching on YouTube. It was this performance in Berlin, so yeah. And the crazy thing about it is I was actually listening to that song the day before he died, and the next time I heard that he died, I was like, that shit's crazy. That's crazy right there. Other than that, rest in peace to those two icons there. It's currently 2:38 in the morning. Yeah, it's currently 2:38 in the morning. Just had a long day of Christmas shopping and all that, so I might as well do some reviews to finish up this year, since I've been kind of MIA the second half of this year, been coming up with random reviews when y'all least expect it. So I'm gonna play some chill music at the moment. Let me start it off. Shoot, sorry about that. Erykah and Rakim's "In the Ghetto" off that "Let the Rhythm Hit 'Em." Alright, and the album I'm about to review today is the Rolling Stones' "Tattoo You," released in 1981 on their own label, the Rolling Stones label. Yeah, you guys should know who the Rolling Stones are. They're by far, in my opinion, next to Led Zeppelin and the Doors, they're my favorite rock group of all time. I'm gonna give you some history about them. They formed in 1962, formed as Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Brian Jones, Bill Wyman, and Charlie Watts. Cause Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, they were longtime friends. They had an interest in the blues and all that, so they linked up. And so they signed to Decca, I believe 1964, and they were covering blues songs, they were covering they were hardcore blues, and they were kind of distinct with them, because around that time most rock groups around the time was either covering rock and roll songs like Little Richard and Chuck Berry and things like that. So 1964, they came out with albums like the Rolling Stones, 12 Times 5, But what really got them noticed was they were in this concert show called the Tammy, the show, the TAMI show, and they came after like James Brown. Originally, from what I looked up, James Brown, he's supposed to close the show, but I guess some guy, he wanted the Rolling Stones to close the show because they were like the team. He didn't think that Rolling Stones would last that long. From what I looked up. And so fast forward to 1965, they dropped the Rolling Stones Now, which was, in my opinion, one of the best albums from that period, though. Cause like it was very blues. It was like very different. Like you can tell the chemistry between Mick and Keith, songwriter, like their chemistry together, you know. And so I'm not gonna talk about the whole history. I'm just gonna talk about like specific moments, cause like they have like artists like with a long consecutive history. I might just talk about specific moments. So in 1966 they dropped Aftermath. And like Aftermath, whew, that album was, in my opinion, like that was actually the first album where they didn't cover nothing on that album, I believe. And like it had like a very like darker kind of sound. In 1967, they dropped Between the Buttons. That album was okay. It was very, you can tell they were trying to like compete with they were trying to like go for that more like the Beatles with that. And it didn't really fit them like that, you know what I'm saying? It never really, because when I listen to Rolling Stones, I expect like bluesy, like heavy guitar riffs and all that stuff, you know? And so, actually in that year, I believe Mick, Keith, and Brian were arrested for drugs around that time, you know? They were always getting in trouble, so. And that same year, 1967, Sgt. Pepper was released, and they made their own album called Satanic Majesty's Request, which is inspired by Sgt. Pepper, and it was self-produced, the first album they all produced. I had not heard that album. To be honest, I don't even want to hear it because I heard it was crap, to be honest. I heard it was kind of So I just skipped that album, if you ask me. I might listen to it one day, but not anytime soon. Then that next year, they got the act together. They dropped, I believe it was a song, Honky Tonk Woman, if I'm not mistaken. Honky Tonk Woman, yeah. No, wait. Jumpin' Jack Flash, I believe. And then it was like a big song back at that time. It was like a return to the original sound. And so they dropped Beggar's Banquet, 1968. That album was very dope. It was actually, a lot of people kind of said that was the beginning of their golden era. And I have to agree with that statement because that album, like from 1968 to 1972, they were on top of the game around that time. So I'm gonna get into that. But then tragedy struck because I think the next year, 1969, Brian Jones, he died. I think he drowned in his pool from a drug overdose, from what I read up. And Brian Jones, he helped find the band, and I read that he was kind of jealous of the success that Mick and Keith were kind of getting, the notoriety that they were getting, you know. That same year, they dropped Let It Bleed, which was like, in my opinion, a better album than Beggar's Banquet, though, you know, because Let It Bleed, it also had like that dark sound to it. But that album kind of got overshadowed by the Altamont concert that happened that year because you guys should know the whole story because like those black teen got killed, Hell's Angels. You guys know the whole story about that. So, and that year, Mick Taylor, he actually joined the band, and Mick Taylor, very dope guitarist right there, and very important figure in like the Rolling Stones history. Fast forward 1970, they dropped the live album Get Your Yayas Out. I heard some of it. It was very dope, you know. 1971, they dropped Sticky Fingers, my favorite album from them. that album is very. I love that album, like, and it was actually the first album where they had that whole tongue-in-cheek logo, that famous Rolling Stones logo. And they moved to France, 1972. They dropped Exile on Main Street. That album, a lot of people say that's their best album. I, as much as I love that album, I kind of say it's kind of overrated because it was like a double. I think it was like a double album. And you know how double albums of music happens, like artists that's like they say it's double albums, so they automatically say, oh, that's the best album because it's a double album. No, Exile Main Street had dope songs like Tumbling Dice, Shine a Light, it had all those dope songs though, but Sticky Fingers, I can play that album Sticky Fingers and I won't skip a track to it, so that's why I say that's my favorite album. And so Keith Richards, he kinda got a heroin addiction, and Mick Jagger, he was kinda enjoying like the celebrity lifestyle, And in 1973 they dropped Ghost Head Soup. That album was had mixed reviews from a lot of people. I'm not really a big fan of that album because it was you can really tell they want to do their own thing with that. And like a lot of fans have been like, oh, that was like kind of like unofficial begin, like how Mick and Keith kind of had that riff, like going back and forth arguing. So, and 1974, It's Only Rock and Roll. That album, in my opinion, was a bit better than Ghost Head Soup. It had more of like a hard rock kind of edge to it. But like Mick Taylor, he left the group around that time. He left the group, and it was kind of like, oh damn. Then he was replaced by Ronnie Wood, who was from the group Faces. Ronnie Wood, he's good, but he's not like on Mick Taylor, because Mick Taylor, he brought like a lot to the group, if you ask me. And so 1976 they dropped Black and Blue. Black and Blue, that was like very, very, it was a very off album. It had some good songs, but something about that album was I might need to listen to it again. I'm definitely do a review on that. And so they dropped a live album next year. And also 1977, Keith Richards, he was arrested for heroin in Toronto, and he almost faced prison time around that time. So, and a lot of people kind of saying like, oh, the Rolling Stones are done, their careers are waning. In 1978, they dropped Some Girls, classic album right there. A lot of like Stones heads gotta say, oh, that's a disco album. That's them trying to do punk. You know what? And it may have some disco songs, but it was a very bluesy album. Like if you listen to the album a couple times, you're like, this is very bluesy, And like that was a very bluesy album, and I kind of feel like that album might need to get more notarized as just being like a disco album, if you ask me. Okay, fast forward to 1980, they dropped Emotional Rescue. That album, wow. That was a disco album. I mean, it has some okay songs, but at the same time, it was kind of like, what was Mick Jagger thinking? Like, you can really tell that Keith was kind of like, if you see some of the music videos for Emotional Rescue, like, watch the music video for Emotional Rescue, and look at how some of the band members kind of like, especially Ronnie Wood, like, cause Mickey's doing like all these weird dance moves. Ronnie was kind of like, what the, like he has like kind of like the what the fuck face, and Keith kind of like has that. That's like some things I noticed though, and so, cause Emotional Rescue had like some girls outtakes, so And then that was yeah. See, Emotional Rescue has some girls outtakes, and that's kind of the same thing with this album right here, with Tattoo You. Yeah. That's what 1981, cause like, cause like Tattoo You, he had outtakes like dating back to Goat Head Soup. They just reworked some of them, you know. So there you go. And like people call their next album, 1983, Undercover, like their first album of the 80s, that officially their first album of the 80s, if you ask me. That's what most people call that. So, alright, singles this album is known for are Start Me Up, Waiting on a Friend, Hang Fire, and like Worried About You and Neighbors are like some unofficial singles. So, yeah, I'm gonna get the CD soon though. I currently don't have a CD as you can see, so I'm gonna get it. This is a CD I'm gonna get. I'm gonna tell you what I think about the album after I finish reviewing all the songs. Track number 1, Start Me Up. Everybody in the world knows that song. Everybody in the world has seen the video. That's, in my opinion, a very, very dope song. You know, it was kind of like a return to form after the whole disco craze. You know, that song actually begun as, it was originally like a reggae kind of song. Like, and that's another thing too. I'm gonna post the original version of the songs when I post like some of the key tracks on those albums. I'm gonna post the original versions of the songs, so you'll get an idea from what I'm talking about. So like, that song was kind of like recorded during like the Black and Blue sessions and the Start Some Girls sessions. So track number 2, Hang Fire, very good song right there. Kind of like I like the beat to the song. Has that kind of like that California like surfer kind of feel to it. But like the lyrics on the song, it talks about like the political landscape of England at that time though. I kind of thought that was very dope for like the Rolling Stones to go political with their lyrics, because when you think of the Rolling Stones, you already think like sex, drugs, rock and roll. So I was very impressed by that song though. And that was like recorded during like the Emotional Rescue sessions. Track number 3, Slave. My favorite song off this album. Very, very, very dope song. I love that bum dun 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 dun. Like I love that bass line to that. I think like Bill Wyman did his thing on that song. It had like a rock and roll kind of feel to it. And another crazy thing, Billy Preston, he actually played electric piano and organ on that song. And Pete Townsend from The Who gave backing vocals on that song too. And Sonny Rollins, I believe Sonny Rollins, he played saxophone on that song. And he actually appeared a lot on the album. Like, I'm gonna get into that later on. Track number 4, Little TNA. This is basically Keith Richards' song right here. Cause like, basically it's a sex song. And he's talking about like, girls like, he met, you know how he met and he'll never see him again. Like he'll have sex with them and then he'll never really see him again, you know? You know how you know how like some celebrities, they'll fuck this one chick and like next you know they'll never see him again and they'll be like, oh, it's like damn, cause like, it's only for sex, you know what I'm saying? I believe this song was actually from the Black and Blue session or the Ghost Head Soup session. I'm not really too sure on that, so track number 5, Black Limousine. Very, very interesting song right here. Wait, is this track number 5? I could be wrong. Yeah, track number 5, Black Limousine. Very interesting song. It's basically a song about their view on relationships. But I'm not really the biggest fan of the song, but it's still a dope song. I would give it a listen. Track number 6, Neighbors. Very underrated song right here. It talks about it talks about like Keith Richards, how his runners with the neighbors, you know, I love like the rock feel, the hard rock feel off that album, cause like basically a song that kind of, it's like something that will piss off your neighbors if you play it like real loud though. And like I read up that he was actually evicted from his NYC apartment because he was playing his music too loud. That was like basically the whole point of the song, Neighbors. And like the second side of this album, it's like mostly ballads and all that stuff. Like if you hear the Isley Brothers, The Heat Is On. The Heat Is On the album, they split like the first on the funk side, and next side is like the softer side. And I guess they were kind of influenced by that, and so they kind of did it with this album. Track number 7, Worried About You. Love that song. I love Mick Jagger's falsetto in that song. Very, very. It's like you never really hear Mick Jagger really like sing like a ballad like that, like especially in a high falsetto. Like I can see what a lot of people call him probably the greatest frontman. I mean, in my opinion, the greatest frontman in rock is Freddie Mercury, rest in peace. But Mick Jagger is definitely in my top 5. You know, up there with like Robert Plant, maybe David Lee Roth, maybe. I might do a list of that. You know. Track number 8, Tops. Yes, this is one of my favorite, second favorite song off this album. It has like a reggae feel to it, mixed in with blues. And it talks about how this guy wants this girl to know that, to get with him, saying he's like different from all these other guys, and he'll take her to the top. You know, the original version of the song has Mick Taylor in it, and it's very interesting listen if you check it out. Next song, track number 9, Heaven. Very, very atmospheric song right there. That's like a song where you can just go late night drive, you can play that song and stuff like that. Very, very dope song. Track number 10, No Use in Crying. And this is kind of like my least favorite song off this album. It's kind of like, it's self-explanatory, you know. And the last track on this album is Waiting on a Friend. This is a classic Rolling Stones song, like classic. Everything about the song works. Mick Jagger harmonizing, Keith Richards guitar playing, I believe Sonny Rollins saxophone, you know. Very, very dope song right there. And I did love the music video to the song. A little trivia about the music video. Two trivias. The black guy who Mick Jagger gave a handshake to, Keith Richards gave a handshake to, that was actually Peter Tosh, who was from Bob Marley's the Wailers band. Like he was like a key member in Bob Marley, and you know they were like close friends around that time. He got murdered back in, I believe, 1987. By the way, kind of fucked up. And then the building in the first like scene of the video, believe it or not, that was actually the building used for Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti album. Like, look, I forget the name of the building at the moment, but very, very, it was like, I believe like a studio or something like that. And that's all the time I have. That's all the songs off the album. This right here is the Rolling Stones' most underrated album, if you ask me. I know, I might say, I'm gonna be like, what? A lot of people will say Goat's Head Soup. A lot of people say Voodoo Lounge. Those are good records right there, but this album right here, like they didn't really get the praise. They got some praise for it, but they didn't get enough praise. You know what I'm saying? One thing I love about this album, Mick Jagger's like lyrics kind of got they were maturing with the lyrics, especially the songs like "Worried About You" and "Waiting on a Friend." Like very mature lyrics right there. And I know a lot of people gonna bash this album because like, oh, it's just an outtakes album, or is it that? It's still a dope album though. I mean, songs like "Slave," "TNA," like, still a dope album. Like, I can listen to this album all day if you ask me, and it will still, I will not skip a track. And okay. And like, another thing about this album was like, just because I like, if they like, I wish they would add some more songs though, because it was, my little bit about this album was it was kind of short if you ask me. Because like other albums like Exile, I believe that'll be well like longer than this. I wish this album they would add some more songs off this album on an album, because that would have been dope. Especially like songs they did with like Mick Taylor that were to like some outtakes, you know. But other than that, a lot of people say this is kind of like the last good Stones album. I mean, it's like the last classic Stones album. They still did some dope albums. Like, I did like Steel Wheels. I liked some of that stuff. And believe it or not, I did like the recent album they put out back in '05, A Bigger Bang. I think they kind of went back to their roots with that one. Other than that, if you're a fan of the Rolling Stones, this is the perfect album for you. Tattoo You, 1981. Pick this album up. And that's all the time I have. Stay tuned for more stuff. Peace.